Good morning, agents, and welcome to another daily episode of Targeted Loot today for Sunday, December 6th. In this series, we cover a lot from the Targeted Loot map, DZ exclusives to farm for, highlights for the weekly vendor resets, build and farming suggestions, and much more. I'm Shadow Gaming, and if you enjoyed this video, consider pressing the subscribe and like buttons below, and remember to comment below if you have any questions as well. Otherwise, let's get this video started. Alright guys, so starting off with the Dark Zone highlights, and of course the vendor reset highlights, which are always in the bottom left overlay, so I don't really recommend too much for the vendor resets. And for DZ West, we got Badger Tough, which has no Dark Zone exclusives, so I'm going to move on to the other Dark Zones. Alright guys, and in DZ South, we also got Future Initiative, which has no DZ exclusives, and I don't recommend farming the Dark Zone unless it's for exclusives because the loot quality is really low. But over here in DZ East today, we do have Walker Harris & Co., which does have a Dark Zone exclusive, and that is the Matador backpack with perfect adrenaline rush. I highly recommend farming for that, and hopefully getting one with weapon damage, crit hit chance, and crit hit damage. Otherwise, let's go check out the north side now. Alright guys, starting off in the north side, actually with the, invaded missions, we got Camp White Oak, and then of course Bank HQ, DCD headquarters, Roosevelt Island, and then Tidal Basin Stronghold. Alright guys, back to the normal targeted loot for the north side. You got strikers at Camp White Oak. Like I always say, I only recommend 3 pieces of this, and this is really only for increased rate of fire and weapon handling. And of course, really only for like a merciless build, unless you want to use braced or throw weapon handling all over the place. And then of course, strikers, you could also use that for like an LMG with perfect frenzy on it to increase the rate of fire to an absurd amount. Next up, we got assault rifles at Coney Island Ballpark. So you can't get the Chameleon with Adaptive Instincts. It's really the only exotic assault rifle that you can farm for. Next up, we got named assault rifles. So you can get the Mechanical Animal of Future Perfection, the Burnout named FAMAS, and I believe the Maniac, which is a named military AKM with perfect overflowing, but that might be a Dark Zone exclusive. Otherwise, the assault rifles that I'd recommend farming for, the classes at least, would be the FAMAS, the military AKM, the Police M4, and the Carbine 7. And then lastly, we got True Patriot at Manning National Zoo. So True Patriot's a great gear set, especially farming for all 4, and you keep the armor cores, and then just throw on crit hit chance or crit hit damage until you reach that crit hit chance cap. And then, mix like a Sokolov chest piece with Intimidate or a Fenris chest piece with Intimidate if you're going to be using a Chameleon. And then the Memento backpack, and that creates an extremely good build, and I'll put that build video in the top right card as well. Otherwise, Kentley College is closed, and the Summit you pick your own targeted loot, so now let's go check out what we got on the west side. Alright agents, over here on the west side, starting off with the gear sets first, we got Negotiator's Dilemma at Potomac Event Center. Now this is a great DPS set for ARs, LMGs, and even SMGs as well. And I will put my double LMG build video in the top right card now that utilizes the Pestilence and the Neg EV. And then of course 4 pieces of Negotiator's Dilemma, Grupo Sombro gloves, and the Coyote's Mask for a pretty good solo and group build. Next up, we got Tip of the Spear at Downtown West. I'm gonna maybe start skipping this one, but really it's just increases specialization weapon damage, and I never recommend farming for it. Next up, we got Hardwired at Constitutional Hall. Now, Hardwired is worth farming for, and I think it might get, overshadowed in TU12 with the waveform coming out, maybe even Rigor. But otherwise, 3 pieces of Hardwired, 2 pieces of Hana U, and 1 piece of Wyvernware with Kinetic Momentum or Glass Cannon on the chest piece. And the Force Multiplier backpack with perfect combined arms is an amazing assault turret and striker drone build, and I use that for all legendary missions. Then the last couple we got is Eclipse Protocol at the White House. Now I have a great fire damage build I'll put in the top right card now that utilizes 4 pieces of Eclipse Protocol, the Imperial Dynasty holster, and 1 piece of Golan gear, which is amazing, but you can also use the Vial Mask as well. And then of course, to increase the damage at the debuff from the Vial Mask, you can use the Demolitionist spec to increase the damage of your Concussion Grenade, which increases the damage of the debuff on the Vial Mask. Otherwise, we do have Aces and Eights at DARPA Research Lab, so that's a great headshot damage gear set. You mix 3 pieces with 2 pieces of Aralda Holding, and of course one of those Aralda Holding pieces of backpack with Vigilance or Composure, and then of course the Chainkiller chest piece with Perfect Headhunter on it, and use the Mantis as your main marksman rifle, and you're going to be hitting some 20 million headshots, so just make sure to get your headshot damage over 200%. So always roll with weapon damage, weapon handling, and headshot damage, and you're going to be in a really good spot. Last one I noticed is Foundry Bulwark, and really, I don't really use this set, even with the chest and backpack, which are raid exclusive to the Iron Horse raid, just like Future Initiative. And I still haven't tried out the DPS hybrid that I was talking about, but really it's a pretty good tank build. I mean, that's really what it's for. You can just absorb absurd amounts of damage even in legendary missions. But otherwise, going on to the normal targeted loot, we got Overlord at West End. You could farm for the Fox's pair of knee pads with 8% damage to targets out of cover, and that's highly worth farming for sure, whether you're in a rifle build or not. Next up, we got light machine guns at Federal Emergency Bunker. The two exotics is the Bullet King and the Pestilence. Both of those drop outside of the Dark Zone. The Bullet King never reloads, and then of course the Pestilence has a really high damage tick. You can get it over 1 million with that Negotiator's Dilemma build I mentioned earlier, and I think that one's highly worth farming for. Otherwise, you got some great named LMGs like the Carnage with Perfect Sadist, and the new Reliable with Perfectly Optimized, and several others. Next up, we got shotguns at Bank HQ. Now, you can get the Sweet Dreams exotic shotgun and one-hit kill like with the melee, like the red and purple bar enemies, and that's usually used for skill builds. Otherwise, if you want some damage dealing shotguns, go ahead and farm for the Mop with 10% armor on kill, the Custom M870, and the Marine Super 90. Those are the 3 best shotguns in the game, and usually you want to roll close and personal on them. Next up, we got rifles at Roosevelt Island. Now rifles, this is what you could farm for, right? So you got exotics, which is the Merciless and Diamondback. And while I don't really recommend either or of those, the Diamondback can be good in PvE and PvP, and the Merciless you kind of just need something to calm it down, like braced, weapon handling, or 3 pieces of striker. Otherwise, it's not really that useful to use. Otherwise, I'd recommend farming for the named rifles like the Surge with Perfect Spike and the Baker's Dozen with Perfect Lucky Shot. Both of those are definitely worth farming for, you know, for skill builds and damage builds alike. Otherwise, the best rifle damage talent you can get in this game would be Boomerang, Rifleman, and Ranger. I always roll one of those on there, usually Boomerang. They're very worth it, and I prefer those over Baker's Dozen. Last couple things we got is Providence Defense at West Atomic Park. You can of course farm for the Sacrifice with Perfect Glass Cannon, amplifying all damage you deal by 30%, but all damage that you get by 60%. And then next up, we got Marksman Rifles at Tidal Basin Stronghold. So the Mantis and the Nemesis are the 2 exotic MMRs you can farm for, but the Nemesis you do need to complete the Grand Washington Hotel when it's invaded. And then you'll get Puck's Blueprint after you do a couple things before that. And then you can, craft the Nemesis. Otherwise, you could have someone drop it for you if they have it already and you're farming for it. Otherwise, you do need to craft it first before it drops. And then, of course, the 2 named ones that I'd recommend would be the White Death and Ekem's Longstick with Perfect Ranger. Those are 2 named MMRs that are worth farming for. And yeah, that's about it. Of course, with Grupo Sombro, 1 piece for DPS builds and 2 pieces for explosive skill damage builds. I always want to let you guys know that because sometimes, it's weird how Grupo Sombro drops and it's very difficult to farm for, but with the optimization station coming in TU12, it might actually be, not too bad. So anyway, let's go check out the east side now. Alright guys, starting off in the east side with the gear sets, which it looks like we only have one, which is Hunter's Fury, probably one of my favorite gear sets. An SMG and shotgun damage build is amazing for phase tanking. Now, of course, my favorite Hunter's Fury build, which will be in the top right card, is Death Grips mixed with Memento with 4 pieces of Hunter's Fury with 3 armor cores rolled on it, and that just shreds through content solo. Now, if you're in group, I recommend my True Patriot build. And then, of course, solo, I recommend the Hunter's Fury for more fun, quicker kills. It's just really, really fun to run that. Now, moving on to regular, normal loot, we got knee pads over here at Capitol Building Stronghold. And the 2 exotic knee pads you could farm for is the Ninja Bike Messenger knee pads and Sawyer's knee pads. And, of course, Ninja Bike being for DPS builds, and the Sawyer's being for tank or skill builds because you're doing more of sitting still. Next up, we got Hana-Yu at Judiciary Square. You can farm for the Force Multiplier Backpack with Perfect Combined Arms. That's an extra 30% skill damage every 3 seconds you land a shot on an NPC, so I recommend using this with the Harmony or just a weapon within sync on it. That's going to boost your skill damage well over 50% just from shooting your gun at an enemy. And then it looks like the last few we got is up here in the northern section. So we got Mass at District Union Arena. There's 2 Mass you could farm for, the Coyotes for your DPS builds and the Vile Mass for status effects and skill damage. Now, of course, you can also farm for the Punch Drunk Mass with 20% headshot damage baked into it, and that is a Douglas and Harding Mass, so you can farm either or, but I recommend Douglas and Harding because I always recommend farming the brand, not the type. Then last couple we got is holsters right here at Downtown East. Now holsters, there's 2 holsters you could farm for that are exotics. That's of course the Dodge City holster for your DPS builds and the Imperial Dynasty holster for status effects and skill damage. Both of those are highly worth farming for, and otherwise you got named ones, well, 1 named holster you can farm for in the Light Zone, which is the Forge holster, and that's going to give you 50% extra shield health to your shield, which is a whole extra skill tier. Going from skill tier 1 to 2 is the equivalent of putting that holster on. And yeah, that's about it. We do have a roll to holdings at Federal Triangle. Like I always tell you guys, roll this with weapon damage, weapon handling, and headshot damage. Crit hit chance and crit hit damage do not matter on a headshot damage build. And yeah, that's about it. Now let's go check out what we got in New York City. Alright agents, lastly, we got New York City target loot highlights, and starting off with the gear sets, we only got one, and I really like this map today. There's not too much gear sets on the east and New York side. Now of course with ongoing directive, this is a bleed damage build. What I do is I mix 4 pieces with the Ridgewise Pride chest piece and the Eclipse Protocol backpack for an extra 30% amplified damage. Now, of course, in TU12, as far as I know, the Eclipse Backpack Protocol, you know, the 4-piece system aggravator talent that gives you that 30% amplified damage to status-affected enemies, is being technically fixed to where you have to put on 3 pieces of Eclipse Protocol pieces, and then the 4th one being that backpack or whatever, so 4 pieces altogether. And then, of course, then it uses the system aggravator talent, so you can't just put on 1 piece of Eclipse Protocol anymore. Now, that's from the TU12 patch notes, which I'll try to link below. Otherwise, to replace that, just get a backpack with Wicked on it. That's kind of, you know, similar. You know, probably the best you can do to replace it. Alright guys, on to the regular target loot. We got submachine guns at Wall Street. There's 3 submachine guns that you can farm for that are exotics. That's the Chatterbox, the Backfire, and then of course the Lady Death. Now the Chatterbox, you do need to finish the quest for first, and if you don't know how to do that, I'll put the guide video in the top right card now. It's about 5 minutes, really quick to see. Otherwise, just remember that the Dark Winter and the Apartment are Dark Zone exclusives. You cannot farm for them outside of the Dark Zone. I usually get this question every week or so, and remember, they're just DZ exclusives. They can drop from targeted loot rewards, manhunt targets, seasonal named item caches, but those aren't really something you could target and farm for, you know? Last but not least, the named SMGs that you can farm for outside of the Dark Zone would be the Safety Distance with Perfect Outsider and the Grudge with Perfect Vindictive. Those 2 are actually worth farming for. You can also get the Swap Chain, but I don't really recommend it because I don't ever use it. Next up, we got chest pieces at 2 bridges area, so you could of course farm for the 2 exotic ones, the Tardigrade and Ridgeway's Pride. Now Ridgeway's Pride, you do need to collect all normal, hard, challenging, and heroic and legendary difficulty exotic components from Summit and then complete floor 100 to get the project, and then you need to complete both parts of the project. That's kind of a strenuous kind of thing to do. So what you could do is just farm with somebody else and have them drop it for you. While I don't know if that completes the project, it does allow you to use the Ridgeway's Pride chest piece. Otherwise, you know, you got Petrov over here at Stranded Tanker. You can farm for the Contractor's Gloves with 8% damage to armor, which is highly worth putting on an LMG build, or, you know, just stacking damage to armor with a couple pieces of Walker Harrison Co. and the Lady Death or Assault Rifles. Last but not least, we got gloves at Civic Center. You can farm for the BTSU gloves, so that's going to be useful in TU12 with all the skill damage metas that are going to be going on. And yeah, that's really about it. I don't really recommend anything else, so that's it for New York City. Alright agents, well that was the targeted loot for today. Thank you so much for watching, and be sure to subscribe, like, and share if you enjoyed my content. If you would like to become a member for support and exclusive perks, you can click the join button below, and I really just want to say thank you to all 5 of my members. I appreciate everything that you do to support me. You can also grab some Shadow Gaming merchandise. I got a lot of stuff. I even got hats. It's awesome. I'm ordering a hat for me and my wife actually today, and that'll be in the pinned comment and video description below as well. Otherwise, you can support me on Alt Tech, Patreon, Storyfire. All my videos are on BitChute as well. But really, if you're still watching this video right now to the end, thank you so much. I work very hard every morning on my content, and I appreciate everyone that values it. Take care, agents, and be sure to stay tuned for more daily Division 2 content. This is Shadow Gaming signing off. I will see you in the next video. Take care, agents.